sons of God. It is my great privilege to give the address before the people of this city on the subject of spirituality, the tuning of the heart. The tuning of the heart must be looked at in the first place as the tuning of the self, what they call in the English language, pulling oneself together. Most often what happens is that we are occupied in our everyday life, and every influence from within or without has an effect upon us. And that effect, so to speak, breaks a person into bits. And when a person is upset, disturbed, out of rhythm, then a friend says, "You must pull yourself together." That means you must tune yourself. It is just like a string of the violin becoming loose. By tuning it to the pitch where it ought to be, you get the whole violin in tune. Apart from others, outside one's own life, even for one's own self, for one's own peace and rest and illumination, it is necessary that the heart must be tuned. And now one may ask, what do you mean by heart? Heart is a word of the dictionary, and very few really understand the meaning of it. Some think it is a piece of flesh in the breast. Other times, the heart is an object of the fairy tale, in which it is so often said that it is love and imagination and feeling, but it is only a fairy tale. For many people, it is not clear what the word heart means. If I were to explain it in simple terms, I would say that the depth of the mind is the heart, and the surface of the heart is the mind. The reasoning faculty is the surface of the same object, the depth of which is the faculty of feeling. And therefore, it is not true that the heart is enclosed in the physical body, only that there is a seat of the heart in a certain part of the body, as there is a seat of thought in another part of the body, just as, according to modern science, the brain is everywhere in the body at the same time. The seat of thought is called brain, and the center of the brain is in the head. And so naturally, one points to the breast when there is a thought of the heart. Really speaking, it is not the body that envelops the heart, but it is the heart that envelops the body. There is a saying of one of the great poets of Hindustan who says that if the heart is large enough, it could accommodate the whole universe. When the heart is developed and becomes living, the physical body seems too small and too limited in comparison with it, for there is no comparison between the physical body and the heart. The relation of the heart with the outside world, for instance with the conditions, is so great that it is the condition of the heart that influences the life's affairs. And when the heart is out of tune, everything goes wrong. It makes the whole atmosphere out of tune. Now, what effect does the heart have upon outer conditions? But you will see, the more keenly one watches life, the more one will find that the heart has an influence upon failure and success, upon rise and fall, upon favorable and unfavorable conditions in life. No sooner has the heart been tuned than conditions in life become better. Ill luck is averted. The wrong reasoning of people who become tired and discouraged with things going wrong, with losses, all these things disappear no sooner than the heart becomes tuned. But at the same time, how difficult it is to keep the heart tuned when it is so difficult for an indelicate instrument like the violin to keep always tuned. The heart, which is incomparably more delicate, is the instrument upon which the soul, the spirit, plays. Is it the heart on which the model of the harp which we know has been made? The ancient artists have given the harp or lute into the hands of angels. Symbolically, it means the heart. Angels mean the heart, that is to say, the heart quality. Besides this, the reason why the heart has an influence upon our life is because the heart is as the seed out of which that plant has grown, which we call ourself. The fruits and flowers are the effect of heart. The same thing is produced that is already in a person's heart, in thought, in speech, and in action. For instance, people cannot conceal their feelings always. One may play to be a friend, one may play to be a brave person, but whatever one plays, one is able to sustain, to maintain so long and no longer, because what is in the heart must come out sometime or other in the form of action or of words, from the lips or in the expression, or even in the form of the atmosphere. The heart never fails to express itself in some form or other. And what does it express? What it possesses, what it is. A person may be our bitter enemy, and for a long time may try to hide it. In some form or other, it will come out. If a person may be our friend and likes to show indifference, some form or other that person's love will leap out. If a person has something against you or has admiration for you, it cannot be hidden. People will close their lips, not show anything in their actions, and never say it. But even through the eyes, it will come out. Through the expression, it will show. Through the atmosphere, it will manifest. The heart will speak louder than words. Now, for the relation of the heart to those we meet. This relation is so great that in the life of industry, business, profession, science, in politics and in domestic life, in every aspect of life, the people you meet are influenced and affected by the condition of your heart. If the heart is out of tune, let a person go into the office, to the factory, at home, among friends, in the club, in social gatherings. Whatever that person will say or not say or do, still that person's very presence will upset the condition wherever the person will go. Therefore, the secret of magnetism, the mystery of attraction in a person, is solved in the study of the heart. Very often, you are uncomfortable in the presence of someone, or the presence of someone draws you quite near, without that person having said one word. One may feel in the presence of someone as if one had always known the person, as if one had always been friends already. What is it? It is the condition of the heart of that person. If one is in tune, one tunes others also. But if a person's heart is not in tune, then anyone in that person's presence goes out of tune. That is the mystery of attraction and repulsion. But very often one will see that people attract one day, but perhaps next week or a month or a year later, there is repulsion. The reason why that person is attracted for a moment was that person's heart then was in tune. But then, after a week or a month or a year, that person's heart has become out of tune. It is therefore that one who is attracted once will feel repulsion another time. And because one does not know the reason, one always blames the other. Human nature is such that one sees oneself last. Especially if one comes to blame, one never thinks of oneself. One first blames another. And if we go still deeper into this subject, then we shall find that not only human beings, but the whole atmosphere, with the weather, with the climate, there's always the tuning of the heart. With all those things that come, even so much with nature, there is that tuning of the heart. Even flowers feel it. Many people can keep flowers in their hands. And with others, no sooner they have touched the flower and it fades. The fading of the flower means it has become out of tune. We have stories of sages in the East that some of them, after having left that place of rest and peace where they were staying, perhaps under the shade of a tree or in a village in a certain place, after they had left that place for maybe 10 years, when they came back, that place was in a bad condition. But the moment they had come and their presence was there, it became fertile and the place was flourishing again. What does it mean? It means they are in tune. And you may have heard in the stories of the East what they call the philosopher's stone. Whatever it touches, it turns into gold. But there is no such thing as a philosopher's stone. If there is, that philosopher's stone is the heart of humanity. If the heart is in tune, whatever it touches, it turns into gold. The sages have not only healed people, but tuned people. Because all ill luck, all sorrow, all failure, all disappointment, all these things come from one reason, and that is the heart being out of tune. The moment the heart is tuned, one rises above all these things. Conditions begin to change. And if we go still further, we come onto religious ground. Not on a religious, but more than religious, on a spiritual ground. And that is the effect of another person's feelings on us. Very few in this modern time know, as occupied they are in worldly affairs, what effect the feeling of another person brings upon us, what influence it has upon us. A central teaching of all religions and the philosophy of all the prophets and the philosophy about all things has been one and the same, and that was consideration of the feeling of another. And if anyone has touched this true religion, or if anyone has understood the mystery of all mysteries. It is this one thing. And that one thing is regard for the feeling of another. The life such as we live from morning till evening, busy, occupied, and interested in our own motives, persevering to get our object accomplished, we become regardless of the feelings of another. Sometimes the others do not say it, and then we become still more ignorant of this. When we begin to think about all this and study human nature more, we begin to find that there is no creature more selfish than humankind can be. With all the intelligence and goodness and greatness, if there's any creature most unjust and inconsiderate, it is humankind. And as such, for one who is a naturally talented person, whatever one's motives be, whether wrong or right, whether small or great, one very often is inconsiderate about the feeling of one's fellow beings, of one's fellow human beings. With a relative who depends upon one, who waits upon one, who cares for one, someone who relies upon one's word in any case. People always have their motives, their conveniences, their joys, their object before them. All else is aside. Always people are victims to their inconsideration. They do not know that it all means failure, ill luck, difficulty, trouble, problems, anything they have to face, very often because of their inconsideration. And you may ask, what do I mean by inconsideration? Friends, we have so many debts to pay in life, and not only money to pay, but there are obligations to those around us, obligations to those who expect something from us. That is to say, thought, consideration, love, service, justly or unjustly, foolishly or wisely, our obligations with friends and acquaintances, and obligations to pay to strangers. And today, the life we live keeps our mind so much at work that it takes away that thought from us. Every day, we become less and less considerate, less and less thinking. Therefore, the unknown influences that come upon us and bring about changes in our life are such that we blame this person or that person or the stars or the planets or different things. But in reality, it all belongs to the world of hearts. As soon as we know that, then we consider our relation towards another our duty, our interest. Our virtue in the world is to be thoughtful, to be considerate about every word we say, every thought we think, every feeling we have, thinking what influence it will have upon another, if it will bring pleasure to another. And if there is any religion or any spirituality, it just is in this. Education today begins with children by teaching them figures, how to count, money. And then, when they are grown up, they are best qualified to guard their interest. If that is the only education, we cannot expect a better time to come in the world. There is no longer religious education. No doubt, the absence of religious education has broken down to a very great extent due to the error of the creeds, of the confessions, the error of the creeds and the confessions. Nevertheless, there's nothing to take the place of it. And children come to youth and become men and women, and what has been in their education that has something to do with the heart quality. There is an old saying in Persia, Ba'ada banasi, be'ada benasi. Good manner brings good fortune, and bad manner attracts fortune. And I was wondering about this, how far it can really be true. There are so many ill-mannered people, thoughtless, with little feeling, who are well off in the world. But by studying human nature and life, I found it is quite true. In the first place, one cannot judge if a person, being rich or in a high position, whether that person is happy. I think to have got good fortune gives more happiness than to have a great deal of money, and we really are deprived of good fortune. What is happiness? Happiness is a flourishing condition of the soul, and it is never there in outside life. For a child who has begun to be ill-mannered, to be hurtful, to be destructive, the same power it attracts and the same things will come to it. What it gives is rebounded, and it takes the same which it gives. And if the child goes on giving, the same things it gets back. How many are ignorant of that fact? People never think that they can hurt by their own words or acts or thoughts or by their feelings. They go on doing, and at the same time it comes again to them, sweeping them off the grounds of happiness. And now coming to the religious. What do we mean by prayer or meditation or concentration, or by praying with the congregation, or by sitting in church? What is gained by prayer? The same thing. The influence of prayer is the tuning of the heart. What is gained by concentration? Again, the tuning of the heart. By meditation? Again, tuning of the heart. All different ways given by religion or by esoteric sources in whatever religion. It all is given towards this accomplishment, the tuning of the heart. Because so long as the heart is not tuned, whatever form of piety we show, it has no meaning. If it is not done with that object, it has no meaning. Nothing is accomplished. Are there not many millions of people, quite apart from those who do not believe in prayer, but are there not many millions of people who pray every day at least once, but not knowing the fact that it is the tuning of the heart? They are not directing their hearts towards it, and therefore they get very small benefit. If they do not know concentration, they may sit in the church at least once a week, or they may sit there week after week. But they have not accomplished that of which the concentration is only the first knowing, if they do not know the object of concentration, which is again the same thing, the tuning of the heart. This absence of the knowledge of concentration is what deprives one of progress. Now I will ask, what is the way of tuning the heart and how to do it? There are 4 different ways. The first way is the stilling of the mind. Those whose minds are not still, whatever be their qualifications, they are incapable of accomplishing anything, because they will always be shown to be restless, thoughtless, and full of errors. It is too much activity of mind that works against it. And how is stilling the mind? How is it to be accomplished? By concentration. And how is concentration to be done? Very often people, not knowing the way of concentration, strain their minds too much. And instead of accomplishing, they destroy it. They become weak because their minds are strained too much. For instance, the other day in San Francisco, I saw Rodin's statue of the thinker, Le Penseur. It amused me very much to see how Rodin has given it a hard expression and a stiff body. And then he made the remark that it means thinking hard. By hard concentration, much is spoiled. And very often, among 100 people who concentrate, there are at least 90 persons who think hard. And then there have come others who, instead of doing it themselves, take a sensitive, nervous, fine person as a medium and try to make that person concentrate. They wreck the medium's brain and then think that they have accomplished something. Besides that, by taking an object before us, we do not only accomplish concentration, but we partake something of the object, just as it is according to the point of view of the mystic about diet, that whatever we eat has not only an effect upon our body, but upon our character. It is therefore that the Brahmins had a certain idea of food. They did not touch other food that had a bad effect upon the character. The Muslims, the ancient Jews, they all had a certain way of eating. They did not eat all things. They knew what effect it has upon the character of humankind. Today we do not think about it. Today we have gone so far that we do not question about food. What comes free is taken without knowing what it contains. It's the same thing with concentration. What we concentrate upon has a similar effect upon us. If we concentrate upon a flower, a rock, a stone, a tree, a living or a dead thing, whatever we concentrate upon, that effect one draws from it, whether it gives power, inspiration, spirituality, or stupidity and cruelty. Besides that, there is the natural way of doing things. If one concentrates longer than one should, one loses by it. It is just like people straining their voice if they sing too long. The master singers always say, do not sing any more than so much. Very often people say they have bad effects from concentration or from meditative practice, and that is because they do not do it under a certain direction. What is happening today is that people take books to guide them. They find it much easier than a teacher. They ask where to find a teacher to listen to. A teacher they do not want. Then what do they want? What they want is to ask for a book or something that can give guidance. Do you think that in the East, any sage publishes a book, writes in a book about the way of attaining spirituality? Never. They never make such a thing. It is not so cheap as that. With the Chicago exhibition in 1893, all the world religions were represented. And Vivekananda came from India, and the word yoga became very well known. Then others wrote some books, and now many who want to know something go to the book as they go to the drugstore. And according to that book, they begin to practice. If everyone went to the chemist and bought medicine, there would be no necessity for physicians anymore. And in a delicate, important matter as spiritual development, the tuning of the heart, if one took the aid of books, where will it lead one to? It does not mean, of course, that books are not inspiring and a great help on the path, of course. But at the same time, when it comes to practice, it must be done under the personal instruction of someone who knows and to whom one can give all the confidence one has. Besides that, the present age has lost one great quality that humankind always had and valued, and that quality is patience. The quicker activity becomes today, the greatest virtue, and the more the people have anything but patience. It was so amusing the other day, we should speaking from California. It was so amusing the other day. There was a ferry going from one post to another in San Francisco, crossing the bay, and so many automobiles had to stop for a minute. And every person was blowing a horn. 1,000 motors, not staying one moment, all together blowing horns. What is it? It is a collective impatience. And where does it lead? It may show one great quality. It is a sign of great strength and energy, an outbursting of energy. But at the same time, everything has a limited purpose. And when something is not under control, especially human nature and character, someday or other, it must get loose. And when it has got loose, it will result in great disaster. For instance, one could for a moment think that such a war as this recent one could have come, how it could have come in this time of great civilization, when there are so many universities and colleges, when there is so much spoken about goodness and kindness, about uniformity, about humanity. And with all this progress, how could this war have come? That it has come is due to collective impatience, a lack of general spirituality. And if it goes on like this, perhaps there will be still greater scientific inventions. But what is it? It's going forward in one way, but going backward in thinking and in feeling. The other day, a genius came to me to have my blessing. I asked him, "What do you want?" He said, "I want to make a cannon that can destroy a whole town." I said, "I give you my blessing, but no blessing on this. From this day, direct your mind in constructive work." And the reason of this is that from the first day that education begins with the child, what it is taught is to guard your interest and not to take every step with thoughtfulness. Besides this, the other way of tuning of the heart is cultivating a sympathetic nature, and that is cultivated by a regard for another. The third way of developing that heart quality by which the heart is tuned is to be able to judge oneself. And so long as one judges others, one is not able to judge oneself, because then one is so full of the faults of the others that one never has time to judge oneself and is always unjust. Beside that, the most amazing thing is that you will find the most foolish person, the most foolish one, more ready to judge than the wise one. The more thoughtful, the more wise the person, the less that person judges, because one has so much to judge in oneself that remains very little to judge outside oneself. Besides that, there is a way of seeing from the point of view of another. And so long as one has not cultivated that faculty, one has not, and so long as one not, besides that, there is a way of seeing from the point of view of another. And as long as one has not cultivated that faculty, one has nothing for another but blame. And praise and blame do not depend on upon what a person is, but upon the heart being favorable or disfavorable, and upon the outlook on life. Besides this, a person who sees with one eye has not a complete vision. In order to have a complete vision, two eyes are needed. And in order to understand a certain idea, a certain point of view of another, as well as one's own, that is what is needed. Your own point of view is not uprooted. If that were the case, it is not right. But it is by looking from the point of view of another that one completes one's vision. That is also tuning of the heart. That is also tuning of the heart, because when two persons meet and when there is understanding, at once there is friendship established. It does not take long to become friends if there is real understanding. But if there is no understanding, and if there are barriers between people, if they are divided from one another, it is by the lack of understanding. If anything brings people together, it is by understanding one another. Therefore, having understanding of every person we meet, we tune our heart. And now, coming to the conclusion of this subject, I shall quote the saying of Christ: "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you." That is the best idea one can find anywhere. That by getting in tune with the God ideal, in other words, by getting in tune with one's divine ideal, one will become so attuned that one will find a way open to the heart of every person one meets, and one will find a connection with every condition and every object, and realize at one moment with the Absolute. And it is this achievement, it is this attainment that one can call spiritual development. God bless you.